Hello, lovely souls. My name is Jackie, and welcome to the Raven Rabbit Wellness Studio podcast. I'm an enrolled member of the Washoe Tribe of California, Nevada. I have always been deeply connected to the unseen spiritual world since I was a child. I wouldn't say that my spiritual awakening can be pinpointed to one specific date, time, or event, but rather it was a natural unfolding over my lifetime. And I want to share that journey with you to let you know that your spiritual awakening is divinely guided. If you want help with self-worth and self-doubt, then this is the place for you. I took baby steps to change my life and heal from anxiety, depression, and self-doubt. Ultimately, I built Raven Rabbit in my quest to help others like you do the same. I am a metaphysical minister, energy healer, and intuitive coach. In this podcast, I draw on metaphysical principles, I read energy, and I intuitively guide our conversation with the holistic, indigenous, spiritual approach to life, healing, and happiness. Stick around to explore the unseen, navigate metaphysics to live your life to the fullest, be the happiest version of yourself, and to deeply heal from what holds you back. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Raven Rabbit Wellness Studio podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Jackie Cope, and I'm so excited to be here with you today. I'm glad you tuned in. I'm glad this title intrigued you and you want to have a little listen here. So thank you for being here. This is episode 24, From Broken to Whole, a journey of healing and resilience. So today I'm going to be sharing how I went from broken parts of me, feeling broken, and how I became the whole person that I am today. And it's not to say that breakage won't happen again. It always does. But how I went from being broken and clueless to whole and healed, and doing that in a really healthy way. So, thank you for being here today. I want us to get grounded in this space and this time together. So, my version of a invocation. Dear Creator, please make me a channel of light, healing, and happiness. Bring our Earth Star underneath us to make us feel grounded in Mother Nature. Have that connection go up through us all the way into our Soul Star. And let me speak the truth and share my wisdom, and only let the highest and best ancestors and guidance be here with us today. And so it is. So thank you so much for being here. This is something that's always been hard to share for me, but this podcast is the platform to do it. And you're the type of listener I want here, hearing this and hopefully learning from and applying to your life. So the topic today is about going from broken to whole. How do we do that? Where do we begin? I think we're all going to have different experiences and stories to share around that, but we can follow a general guide or get inspired by others. Today we're going to be exploring how I went from broken to whole through my life experiences. I think we have many things that come up for us. So I'm not going to talk about one specific event that was traumatizing or a life experience. Yeah, there's that one event. I'm going to talk about it. But really, it's a culmination of all the things. And then by the time that really big thing happens, you break. You're broken. But usually it's a lot of little things that go to it. It's like a multitude of events that led to my wholeness path. So maybe you've dealt with devastating trauma or experiences and still haven't found the way back to wholeness or even begin the healing process, and that's okay. I want to share how I've healed and continue to heal from life experiences that happen. So I want to give a little background about me and some things that made me feel broken. The thing that made me feel the most broken, if I have to pinpoint like one experience, even though I know it was a culmination of things, if it was one experience that I could pinpoint it to, it was getting divorced. That made me feel completely broken. This in itself was extremely hard. And what came after that was even harder, because that pinpoint event that we can think of, like that really bad or negative thing, it's usually there's a bunch of stuff leading up to it. You have the experience itself, and then the things that follow it can also be traumatizing or bring things to the surface that need healing. So the divorce itself was extremely hard, but it was the catalyst to a bunch of other stuff coming up, such as the feeling of never feeling good enough for anything or anyone. I had complete self-hate. So I think it was a little bit before or after. I had that kind of stuff before, but then after getting divorced, it was extremely exposed. I had very low confidence. Divorce was what happened, but all the underlying stuff was there, and it needed to be brought to the surface by something. So a lot of times we know certain things about us are there, and we try to ignore it, we suppress it, we may be oblivious to it, and then that big pinpoint experience can bring it out. So I knew I had to tackle all of those things if I wanted to heal from the divorce rather than succumb to it. So my ex-husband left me in 2019, and we were divorced in 2019. And so through the year of 2019, I think I made very questionable decisions because I was dealing with pain. And so it was like a year of just reacting. I tried to do things in a healed way, but you also have to learn as your path. I did some good things, but I also did some questionable things. And so it's about finding that balance. Now I know when big life experiences happen, how to handle them in a much more healed way. But 2020 came in March. So I'm thinking of like a breaking point of that divorce. Yeah, the divorce happened. I reacted to it. I had my year of questionable morals and reacting rather than being proactive. And then March 2020 happened, and we got to go on a 2-week break. We were forced to. I say got to because I needed it. I was broken from divorce. I had a really tough class that year of students, so I was just really tired. And I was like, give me 2 weeks. I need to be home. But we quickly found out that it was not going to be 2 weeks. It was going to be an entire year. So going on that COVID forced leave was definitely my breaking point, because then I had to confront everything that I had been trying to run away from. So I know divorce was the catalyst. I had a bunch of stuff before it, a bunch of stuff after it. My breaking point was being put on quarantine by myself. I'm a single woman. At that time, I'd been living in my home for a year by myself, and it's a decent sized home. So I live in a large stick-built home on 3 acres of property at the time by myself. So I was very isolated physically. And when I found out, we're not going back to school, like I wasn't going to go back to teaching or anything like that indefinitely until the situation got figured out, I became very afraid. I had always been a very social person, very outgoing person. And a lot of that was a front to all of the things I was trying to hide, which I learned through me dealing with it. But I knew at that point that I was afraid to be alone with myself. It was like, I'm going to have to go on this quarantine and be alone, a single person in a big house by myself. And that was very scary. So that had a big emotional impact on me. So the emotional impact's important when we talk about these life-altering experiences or traumatic events that make us feel broken, because sometimes we can't even address those feelings. We don't know how to even label them. So I didn't know how much to label those feelings, but I can now. I was afraid to be alone. I was worried about my social life at that time. I was worried about dating and finding a partner, because how are you going to do that when you're here? I'm in a rural area. It's not going to be possible. And I was honest with myself, and I didn't think I would handle isolation very well. So from that, I decided to have a turning point. It was like I could sit here and wallow and be upset, or try to now use this time as a blessing and do something proactive about it. So I decided, all that talk you always hear of, go to therapy, get help, seek a professional. I was like, I'm going to hire a psychologist. I didn't go through the insurance and all of that because I just knew I didn't want to deal with that. I just wanted to go in to Psychology Today, put in my parameters, and work with someone who was, like, I found to be a really good fit for me. And I did. And I paid for that out of pocket. And thankfully I was able to do that. I know some people don't have access to that. But that's what I did. Because some people do have access to that and are in denial about needing to do it or wanting to do it and the benefits of it. So I realized quickly when we weren't going back, I had to do something. And I did something I had never done before. Like hiring a professional, like a psychologist. I was the first one in my immediate family to do something like that. That's not something my family does. I knew, though, when I reached out to her and made my appointments, and it was going to happen weekly, like, it helped me so much just mentally knowing I'm going to meet with somebody on Zoom once a week and then not be alone. And that was very comforting to me. And be able to talk about all these things I've been trying to avoid and run away from for the past year, because I just threw myself into work, into friends, into partying, into other things, just to try to avoid the feeling of divorce. So I had to acknowledge my pain and accept it. That's a big part of all of this. A part of healing is just acknowledging it exists, that you need healing, and then accept the healing that comes, because it's not always easy. The first step to my healing process was beginning with a psychologist, I think. It was really her. It was the first time I'd ever been verbally honest with someone about my thoughts, my feelings, experiences. It felt so weird and so foreign to actually just say everything that I wanted to say and needed to say. In the past, I would leave out important factors of my stories or feelings. I don't know, I could have done it out of trying to people please, taking up less space. Most of it was just out of plain fear. If I shared the whole story, what would happen? So I did a lot of that out of fear. So it was the first time I really got to open up to somebody, and I finally got to share with somebody how angry I was about divorce and how angry I was at that past year of living, because it wasn't really living, it was surviving. So seeking out the psychologist was just huge, to seek out that help. And you don't necessarily, I don't think, need to have a psychologist. I think it's great. I'll get more vulnerable. I chose a psychologist because I thought there was like something really wrong with me. And I was like, a psychologist is a doctor and she'll be able to diagnose me. Which is true. Psychologists have, different capabilities over a therapist or something. But I picked a psychologist out of my fear and worry of there being something more wrong with me. There wasn't, and there isn't. So I think typically for most people, there's usually not something underlying, more like medically speaking, and it's okay to have a life coach or to confide in your partner or have a therapist. I think you don't have to have such a high level academic person to analyze you. Again, but that was me operating out of fear, because I knew something was so wrong that I thought it was really wrong. Because when I think about my divorce and how bad it got at the end, there were very spiritual things happening. And at the time, like I've shared before on this podcast, I had been so conditioned by my grandma and stuff to not see the dark side, don't look at it, don't acknowledge it, just don't. And when I started seeing that dark side in my partner and what was happening around us in our home and seeing the spiritual dark side, I took it in my later 20s as something was physically wrong with me. It really was spiritual warfare there, though, now that I'm older and can reflect back. Some of those things were, because this could be happening to you, and this is nothing against my ex-partner or anything. This is just to share what had happened, because I've never shared it with anyone outside of my mom and current partner. When my past partner and I were fighting a lot, his physical face would alter and change. And I thought I was seeing things like that something was wrong with me medically to be seeing his face change. And I would just lose it. I'd be like, how could, his physical face change? And then other times he would have a black swirl appear in front of his face. It would start getting distorted and swirl and be black. And that scared me. Like, I was laying in bed and he had walked into the room. I looked up at him and the black swirl just took over, and it was petrifying. It was so scary. It got so bad while I was still with him that I went to Kaiser and I didn't tell him what I saw. I just knew that there was something wrong, and I got put on antidepressants I just said I was really depressed because I knew deep down it was from seeing those things, and it was petrifying and awful and scary. And then it got stronger, that force, whatever it was. I would come home from work. I would turn down our street. There's only 2 houses on our street because I live out in a rural area. And I turned down the dirt road. And by the time I would hit my property, I'd see this black shadow. It was like a drape almost. And it'd be up in the sky. And it would follow me home alongside my car up high in the sky. And it was like it was greeting me like, welcome home. I can't wait to torture you. It was awful. I would see this black shadow come out to the edge of the property, follow my car all the way home, and it would just be so scary. So I had a lot of those things happening. And why I thought, when you think of things in the Western way of, oh, well, if you're seeing those things, there must be something wrong with you. There was nothing wrong with me. I had a psychologist check. I'm mentally fine. There was a spiritual warfare going on that was centered around my ex. And when he left, that thing or those things, whatever it was, left. And a lot of weight was lifted off. But then I had a year of making questionable choices because it was so much and it was so heavy. So to get a little more on topic back here, that was my past that led to going to the psychologist, and why I picked a psychologist. My point was, you don't necessarily need one. Life coaches, spiritual coaches, religious, if you go to church and have some kind of counseling, I think all of those are really great resources to seek out and to get you started. But because I had rejected so much of my spiritual past, I wasn't looking at what I was facing through that spiritual lens like I do now when I do have experiences. Picking the psychologist, I went through, like I said, psychology.com and put in my parameters because I did know at the time, like, I wanted somebody who was human rights centered. I really did want a woman for this specific issue because it was divorce. I was going in it with my very worldly issues, like, it's a divorce. I want a woman to help me. I want a woman's perspective. I wanted her to be a little bit older than me. So there was parameters I set, pretty basic ones. She was super supportive. She definitely helped me through all of that. So I started therapy basically March of 2020. And then I did it for almost a full year. I did every week, and then we went to every other week, and then once a month, and check-ins. By the time I met my current partner and he moved in, I was like once a month or something. So she drastically helped, and I think that's what helped find my current partner as well, is because I was doing a bunch of healing work that needed to be done. I needed to address and stop running away from. She was really supportive, and she suggested I start reading jung. And I've learned now through my metaphysical studies and everything, and that his opinion on psychology was like transformative, and that there is that spiritual side. I can't think of it directly, but I did order the book. I did read most of it, and it really, I already knew I had a spiritual path, because like I said, I've accepted all of that since I was young. But it was a big catalyst to me taking that study more seriously, because again, me being a very academic person, I wanted to learn everything about psychology to a sense. And so I started researching more, and it really put me on my metaphysical path in an academic sense of, I need to read more, and let's make a study plan, and how am I going to learn this, and what do I need to bring back with me that's really helpful. So it's part of the reason I sought out metaphysics, and in a very academic way. So I still have setbacks. I think it's a natural part of life. And now I feel like going through that year of therapy through 2020, really diving deep into my yoga practice, metaphysical studies, I've learned how to handle those setbacks in a much healthier way. A lot of things came up, I said, during therapy that addressed deeper lying issues. So yeah, divorce happened. It came with its ramifications and hard issues, but it also revealed something really big about me that I had not acknowledged before, but it's my fear of abandonment I have, and that fear of being alone. So fear of abandonment has come up a few times for me, and I will completely flip a switch and be very irrational when I think it's happening to me because of the way I was divorced. It was very traumatic. So the way I started realizing I had it was when my first husband left. He told me he was going to divorce me, I begged him to stay, all of that stuff. But it was right after Christmas. I had to go back to work. I was mad. He already had plane tickets to live with a military buddy and all of this stuff. Like, he was set in his mind of what he was going to do. So I wasn't very mad. I was like, you can't live here when I know all of this is going to happen. Like, go live with your mom or something. Like, figure it out. That's not my problem. If you're not willing to work on our marriage, that is. And he wasn't. So I went to work. I came home. All his stuff was gone. Nobody was home. So that sparked this whole fear of abandonment thing I think I had always had, but in a very big, big way. Like, I could go to work and come home and somebody could be gone, and that life can just be completely over. And I never spoke to him again. We, like, in a closing way, like, you don't have to talk to a partner if you need closure. You don't need any of that. Just needed a good therapist. We talked like one or two more times out of technicalities. Like, he needed to come to a paralegal appointment and sign divorce papers. And then with COVID money and all of that, we had to figure out some tax stuff. There's never been a reason to reach out to him again after all of that. If he wanted to fix it, he would have stayed and fixed it. So, what that brought up, though, was a huge fear of abandonment I had. And it started trickling out in other ways for me to realize that, of how anxious I would get if I didn't get left in a store, but like, it felt like I got left in a store. If my mom went to a different section, and the panic I would have if I couldn't find her, if I felt like I was being left. I would travel, and if I missed the bus when I was traveling, or if I went the wrong way, just that total, utter fear of being alone. And I'm bringing this up because I'm like, how do I handle the setbacks now? In my current relationship, this happened once. We did get in a verbal argument. He parked the car, stopped, got out, and started walking down the street. I lost my mind, because all of that fear comes back of, I'll never see him again. That is it. That was my closure. So, and it wasn't, but that all of that comes back. So how do I handle those setbacks now? Because healing is not a linear process. I knew with this partner how things were so different, that when he came back, and so he came back because he saw what a mess I was. He was like, what is happening? And I had never shared with him all of that. And I was like, told him about my fear of abandonment. So the way I handle those setbacks now is having an open conversation with someone I trust and love about my experiences and fears. Like, he's like, I just got out of the car to get some fresh air because I was so mad. Because his coping mechanism was, let me remove myself from this situation so I can breathe and I could think. And I'm like, yeah, well, you needed to breathe and think. My whole world fell apart, because that's just not how I operate. I don't walk away and breathe and think. I needed to be dealt with. So those setbacks will come up throughout your life when you least expect them to. They'll just completely catch you off guard. I was reactive in that moment, but then very quickly after, I gathered myself and was able to explain to him why I had that reaction. And then we were able to deal with it. So now he knows, don't get out of a car or a space and slam the door and walk away, because I'm going to have a freak out. Make sure and tell me, okay, I'm going to go get some air. Like, I just need to be told that. I need to step away from the situation. Even though I don't like that he does that, I have to respect it, because at least he told me, and he'll be like, I'll be back in 5 minutes. So just that open communication and having that. So through all of this, that's how I was broken. Again, it's like a layering effect. You have these broken pieces of you. Then that big event happens, which feels like it completely broke you. And then in that moment, you can either choose to stay broken. I think that's where we fall on the lines of becoming depressed, having anxiety, hopelessness, despair. All of those things lie there. And you might need to feel those things too. You may need to be broken for a while. It all depends on us. But then finally getting to a breaking point, and that will reveal all of the things you've been trying to run away from, consciously or subconsciously. These things will come out to the surface, and then you can start to decide how to handle those things. Mine was, like I told you before, the only way I knew how to put it to my therapist at the time was just a fear of being alone. Like, COVID reminded me again, like, oh, I'm divorced. Now I have to be home alone with myself. Working with my therapist, we found out, the more correct term would be a fear of abandonment that I had. And I was able to dissect that and understand that, and then now share that with my current partner. So it really was, it's a whole lot more. I think the things that make us feel broken can be highly complex, because it's not just the thing in itself. Because you might tell somebody your thing that made you feel broken, and they might dismiss it or say, oh, you'll get over it, or it was meant to be. Little comments like that are just not helpful, because there's usually a bunch of stuff that occurred before the large event that makes you feel broken. Then you have to decide after the event what's coming out and what you're going to handle. So my key takeaways about healing from that experience and what I teach in my business is connecting to your higher self is highly important. Had I listened to myself and my higher self throughout my first marriage and really listened to that person who was trying to talk to me, I think I would have seen some of the things sooner. Because I knew some of those issues were there, but I didn't handle them. I didn't deal with them. I don't know if it goes to being too young. I was naive. I was also trying to chase what I thought was my dream at the time. So I was willing to sacrifice a lot in order to achieve a bogus dream. So, if your higher self is speaking to you, listen to it. Because they are correct. Before I got in that first marriage, I had true, cold feet. I knew something was wrong. And I didn't listen. Because then you hear everybody, oh, you always get cold feet before your wedding. When I was that young, I was 21. And now that I'm with this partner, I'm like, no, you don't get cold feet. That shouldn't happen. It should feel like I love who I'm listening to now. It's it should be a full body yes. You should have no doubts in your mind about it. Danielle in the Daily, that's who. She always talks about a full body yes. If it's not a full body yes, then it's not for you. So listening to your intuition and higher self is so, so important. My higher self also told me too that there was something wrong when I saw the black swirling. I saw the black shadow following me home. When my first husband's face would alter and change. My higher self was being revealed to me physically, but it was also my higher self trying to be like, wake up, something's wrong. But I was in denial about it. I thought something physically in the modern sense was wrong with me. That I needed to be diagnosed. I was seeing things. No. Another key takeaway is to trust your intuition fully at all times. So we have that gut feeling. We have that intuition. And we don't always follow it. So with me always feeling scared to share everything. Because I have many of times where I've told friends, well, I didn't tell you the whole story. And then I would proceed to tell them another part. And they'd be like, you never told me that. My gut was probably telling me I probably shouldn't have been sharing with them anyways. Or I had, that was something I needed to work on. That fear of sharing. What really happened to me when I finally shared the whole story? Nothing really. Just, I finally got to get that off my chest instead of having to carry it. So, listen to your intuition fully at all times. Another key takeaway about healing is being open to who I am and not caring about what others think. I cared about what others thought so much because I would get worried about what would they think of me, and if they knew this about me, no one would want to be my friend, and I wasn't lovable. It was all that negative confidence stuff I had. That's why my metaphysics was so powerful with healing, because I get into affirmations and reprogramming and positive mindset, and it just helps so much about being open of who I am, and there's nothing to fear from that. The next biggest takeaway I've learned is setting boundaries. Setting boundaries is respect for yourself at the end of the day. I learned through that healing process that not everyone is meant for you. Not everyone's meant to be your friend. And sometimes you might know that the person's not meant to be for you in your life. But I had such a fear of not having somebody in my life. I just accepted it. Romantically and just platonically, with friends. I just accepted mistreatment because I had a fear of being alone. So setting those boundaries and actually being alone more so was very scary and hard to deal with, but so much better for my health. I think of one example of after I'd been going to therapy for quite some time. Was it after therapy? I think, no, it was leading up to the therapy when I knew something had to change. So it was still 2019, you could still be out in the world and do things, and I was dating somebody, and I dated quite a few people and would accept poor treatment in the sense of just my boundaries were disrespected, poor treatment. Like, they were late. They didn't put emphasis on the situation like I did. Just small, like, things that drove me crazy. And I finally said to myself, like, I have to have higher standards. This is driving me crazy. And I had been dating this one guy for a while. And he disrespected me. He actually raised his voice. And this one, that was a big red flag. He raised his voice, yelled at me. And it's okay to be emotional, but I don't want to be yelled at. And I was like, that's not for me. If that's what you're going to show me within like 2 months of dating, what is it going to be 5 years married? 20 years married? No, thank you. Because that's just the beginning. And I cut him off. And he tried to apologize. And I accepted the apology. But just as in, thank you for apologizing and recognizing that was wrong. But I'm not interested anymore. Thank you. And I had a former friend say to me, how do you just cut somebody out of your life? Don't you have an emotional attachment to them? Don't you want to keep trying? And I said, I don't have time. If you're going to yell at me now, what are you going to do further down the road? Because I was just raising your voice with somebody you were dating. I don't need to stick around and find out what that escalates to later on down the road behind closed doors and whatnot. So I set those boundaries and I was like, I don't have to continue to date somebody if that's how I'm going to be treated. And that was really revolutionary for me. I got married so young. I didn't really date. I didn't know how important personal boundaries were. For somebody else, they could probably be like knocking their head like, duh, Jackie, you should always have your self-respecting things. But I was learning that. I was married my like whole adult life. From 21 to 29, there was no dating and finding out who I was. So, key takeaways. Connect to your higher self, trust your intuition, be open about who you are, and set boundaries. All of those things are going to help you heal. Then, when you do have those setbacks, because those negative life experiences, I just call them life experiences now, are going to happen, and you're going to have setbacks, but how you approach them and handle them is going to be completely different. I know this time around, I have had setbacks with having the brain tumor surgery. That was a negative experience, but I also handled it so much differently than how I would have before the therapist and before deeply, deeply diving into my spiritual journey. So I know how I've handled that is completely different. Doesn't take away from it. I still had my setbacks. I still let some of the negative creep in and hold me back, but that's always a sign of expansion, that more is coming. And I know that too now, that because I had that experience, more comes from it. I've also had my setbacks. My last episode was about workplace discrimination, and I didn't give an update on that. I did go to the board meeting, and it did not go in my favor. My appeal got denied. They completely condone discrimination at that place of work. So that's a setback too. It's discouraging to know that social justice doesn't matter to some people and to some employers. But I know that setback's occurring for a reason as I think about my education consulting business on this within Raven Rabbit. It's all for a reason. So handling that too, even though it's a huge setback, it's very upsetting. I'm not happy about it. I know I'm handling it in such a different way than I would have before all of this. So I think I definitely would have been way more reactive and vocal in a negative way prior to my spiritual journey and such. So, a piece of advice to my listeners is to listen to the voice telling you to do something. That's probably why you even Googled this topic or are here, because you feel broken. Whatever that voice is, no matter how small, listen to it. Even if you don't know what that voice is trying to tell you, it's trying to tell you something. So listen to that voice. We might know or not know what that something is, but we have to listen to it. You can't ignore it if you want something to change. We can try to suppress things, but that just makes the problem worse. I was using old ways of being to just move forward, and it was not serving me any longer. It wanted to heal. All of that wanted to heal all of that brokenness and stuff, and so something had to change. You're going to have to do something completely different you've never done before if you want to see and feel that change and start to heal. Even if that completely different is something small, that's fine. It's still completely different. Well, thank you for tuning in to episode 24. I think we covered some really deep stuff about the messiness of healing. It's not pretty. It's not fun to talk about. It can be dark, but it's part of who we are, and it's part of the human experience we've all signed up for. We've all chosen these things and picked these experiences at some level. And they're going to make you who you are, and they're going to help you understand your 3D world around you and understand you at an even deeper level. Right now, this week, I just launched my Mystic Rise Part 2. It's a manifestation course. It's on ravenrabbit.com. It's completely free. Go to ravenrabbit.com, add that manifestation Mystic Rise Part 2 to your cart, check out. It won't charge you anything. And then you'll get to log in. You'll have to make a login, get in onto my portal, and you will have access to my whole manifestation course that is full of so much wonderful, great stuff. Because it all goes together. Working on this healing and maybe even manifesting that course. You could just be having some positive thoughts about your situation and wanting to evolve. Just having the thought of, I want to evolve. I want to change. Those are great manifestation starts, and more can be revealed to you. And you can learn how I did that and how I do that now in my manifestation course. I really hope you resonated with this topic. I didn't want to just make it about one thing because we have so many things that could have happened to us, and it's all relatable. It's all a part of the healing journey. So check out Mystic Rise Part 2, put it in your cart, and start learning with me. You'll get to log in, watch videos, download my PDF. There's over 60 minutes of knowledge in there. There's 3 modules and a whole PDF workbook for you to work through. Also, don't forget to follow me, Raven Rabbit LLC, on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Those are great ways to stay connected. You could subscribe to my email list on my website, and I send out weekly updates. I don't abuse that too much. Sometimes I forget a week. We're human. I send out weekly updates. I'll send out an in-depth card reading, because I'll do a card reading here soon in June, and I'll send out a little bit more of what that means in June. And when you sign up for my subscription email, you get access to my spiritual bingo. This is another little resource for you to take advantage of for free. So, thank you so much. Go ahead and rate this podcast, please. In Spotify, you can give it stars. All of that engagement matters. If you star it and like it and share it, it'll help other people trying to find these types of spiritual topics and wanting to connect, to find me and to find us. So go ahead and do that on Spotify as well. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening today. Thank you for listening. Expand the life, healing, and happiness of others in your field by sharing this episode. You can get more of my content and other helpful tips by following Raven Rabbit LLC on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. Be sure to comment on Spotify and answer the episode's questions so I can keep creating content you love and desire. Thank you so much.